All right, guys. Well, I'm here with my man, Ryan Duffy. Ryan just said yes to coming into the book Reputation Driven. Now, Ryan has an awesome story, which I know that you guys will love to read and it's going to resonate with you guys. But before we jump in, Ryan, thank you for stopping by, brother. I know that you have an amazing story, ex-firefighter, a whole bunch wasn't, encompassed that whole entire journey. So share a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do, man.
Yeah, thanks, Judah. I appreciate you having me. So I'm a real estate broker. I'm licensed in the states of Arkansas, Missouri, working on Oklahoma right now as well. But my wife and I started this brokerage after starting our own vacation rental properties and getting into the real estate game. And we specialize in short-term rental properties and helping other people invest in those types of properties so that they can generate cash flow for themselves and their family and kind of live the type of life that we're trying to build for ourselves and our family, right? With real estate investment and short-term rentals in general, it's so easy to quickly scale your business and get to a point where, you can take more time to spend with your kids on the boat and hiking and out in the woods and that kind of thing. And that's really why we're doing what we're doing, and why we're excited about helping other people get into that sphere and invest the way that we have. So, we've grown the business pretty quickly over the last few years. We're trying to keep it small. We've got a boutique brokerage. We've got 7 agents that work with us. And we're focused on helping people, lock down investment properties in Southwest Missouri and North Arkansas. So we operate between Branson, Missouri and the Buffalo National River down in North Arkansas.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, you come from, like I said, a firefighter background. So we know that once, when you decide to become a firefighter, a cop or something like that, you're putting your life on the line for your service, for to do your service and pretty much to protect the community. And then when you put yourself in situations like that, I'm sure that when you thought of being a firefighter, this was something that you were probably thought, hey, I'm going to retire doing this job. Talk a little bit about that particular background and how the transition came about to opening up your own brokerage, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's one of those jobs that you get into and it's like a dream job, people make movies about it. And and it was a blast. I loved it. I loved being a firefighter, but I never had any intention of leaving. But I got on the job, I think I was 21, 22. And within 6 months of starting out of the academy, I had my first back injury. And, when you're young and, you got a lot of testosterone and a lot of health, in general, it's like, I just power through it. Right. So that's what I did for years. After that first herniated disc, it just snowballed, and I ended up getting 2 more over the next 3 years following that. And then it was just a series of, trying to mitigate it with yoga and stretches. And then there's cortisone injections, and then there's narcotics, and it snowballed quickly. And my quality of life went downhill really quick. It was affecting my family, my marriage. I felt like I wasn't being a good parent at the time because of the amount of pain that I was in. I couldn't pick up my son, So really, my hand was kind of forced. So we found ourselves in a position where we had some equity in the house. We did a lot of sweat equity to it. We repainted stuff. We stripped. It was an old 1920s Chicago bungalow, like an old Sears house. So, it had a lot of cool character to it. It just needed brought back to life. So we found ourselves in a position where, all right, we can sell the house. We can have a bit of a nest egg. So we did that knowing that, I was looking at like 3 surgeries by the time this was done to correct everything. And at the end of it, I knew I wasn't going back to firefighting. I could probably ride it out behind a desk if I really wanted to, but that's not what I signed up for. Right. So we're renting an apartment at this time. We sold the house. And we've been coming down to the Branson area on Table Rock Lake for years. My wife's family had some land down here, and just a really cool place to hang out. And we'd spend the summer, not the whole summer, but like a week for 4th of July, and come down here and blow up fireworks and shoot guns and play in the lake, and do all the stuff that we couldn't do in Chicago. Not legally, anyways. You can't go around blowing stuff up and shooting guns legally in Chicago. Not that it stops people, but anyways, I digress. So we're down here. It's 4th of July, 6-7 years ago, whatever it was, and we just sold the house and we had this money in the bank, and we're living in an apartment. We didn't have any green space for our kid to run around at. And we just didn't want to leave. I'm like, shoot, I don't want to make this drive back to Chicago. And she's like, I don't want to either. But we started driving, we got in the car, we get, halfway home. We're in like St. Louis, and it's like, let's just stop for the night and pull up my laptop. I look at Zillow and I find this terrible listing, like close up cell phone photos of a front door, and it just looked terrible, right? But it was 120 grand for this 2-bedroom house on an acre and a half. And it was like 2 minutes away from the lake, like right where we came from. Looking at the property taxes, it's like $400 a year. And I'm running the numbers. I'm like, Shae, I think we have just enough in our bank account for a down payment on this. And if I had to deliver pizzas, I could pay the mortgage for this, for what it is, for what we're used to, you know? So we got in the car the next morning. We drove 4 hours back. We looked at this house and we closed on it 60 days later. You know, we packed up our apartment. We drove down here with the U-Haul and had to figure out what the heck we're going to do, you know, because I mean, I was a firefighter. Shae was an interior designer. And we didn't feel like either of those would really translate into the market we just moved to. So we just figured it out. You know, Shae got her real estate license, not knowing a soul down here. You know, we just moved from 500 miles away. And it takes a while to gain traction in real estate. You know, it's all about, you know, personal connections and your reputation and who you know and everything, right? So she's literally, you know, within the first year of us moving down here, she's 8 months pregnant, pushing a stroller with our youngest son, knocking on doors saying, "Hi, I'm Shae Duffy. Do you know anyone looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate?" People are looking at her like, it's like the middle of July. It's 85 degrees out. What are you doing walking around pregnant, knocking on doors? She's like, "I'm a realtor." So she did that for, you know, 2.5, 3 years to, you know, before it got up and going. In the meantime, I started working with her uncle initially because he was building a house on the lake. And I didn't know anything about building a house, but I'm like, you know, I'm willing to learn. I can't lift over 100 pounds, but I can swing a hammer. He's all right, cool. I'll pay you cash and you know, you can apprentice with me and learn the trade and everything. And so I did that for about 1.5 years and then started a remodel business. I got my Arkansas home builder's license. And then once Shae's business got up and going, you know, we ended up converting the house we were living into our first short-term rental. And we were able to do that with the help of some friends that we were partnered up with, purchasing another building up the road. That's really just a glorified garage. It's a metal shop building with a 2-bedroom apartment built into half of it. And then we rented that back from the business that we owned together. Just as kind of an experiment. Like, let's see if this whole Airbnb thing works. This was the end of 2019. And, you know, we're thinking, it'll do okay. It'll pay us a few $100 a month, you know, whatever. It blew away our expectations. I mean, it completely replaced the money I was making in remodel, you know, I mean, to the point where literally I stopped my remodel business and I just took care of the short-term rental full time. I'm like, this is not like a hobby. Like, this is not just, you know, a few bucks here and there. Like, this is a real industry. So within, I'd say 3 months of us going live with our first short-term rental, I hung up my contractor's tool belt. You know, I went and got my real estate license. We were under contract for another property with our partners, and it just snowballed quickly from there. I mean, we're working on our 4th short-term rental property right now, and we're about to break ground on 4 more. So
that's awesome. That's awesome,
Ryan. It's been a fun journey. Well,
talk a little bit about the timeline between about how long did it take you to get from that point to where you decided to move down and to Branson and bought your house up until now. So what's that timeline?
About 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not an overnight success. You know, a lot of times we look at the internet and we think, you know, the success is overnight. But what you guys have been able to do was, like you said, build that reputation. You learned some different skills, learn new skills. You had to do what you had to do. And then all of a sudden, the momentum started happening for you guys. And one thing led to another. And now you realize that the short-term rental industry is where you needed to be at because of what it yielded for you and your family. And now you're here. So what made you decide to actually share your story and reputation driven? What made you want to really get your story out there to the world and help impact other people?
My colleagues kept telling me to write a book, and I'm not the type to go out and write a book. I'm not the type to go out and share my personal life, you know, with the world. But I just, you know, I kept having this conversation over and over again with different people. You know, I just kind of in passing talk about our story and where we came from and everything. And I had seriously 4 or 5 people over the last year like, man, you need to write a book. Like, you could really help people, or you should, you know, talk to people that have had, you know, issues with painkillers, you know, because I was went through that for years, or talk to people with, you know, back injuries, or talk to people just starting in real estate. And so that conversation kept coming up over and over and over. And I'm like, okay, I saw the project that you were involved in, and I'm like, all right, well, this is probably a good opportunity. I don't want to sit down and write a whole book, but I can write a chapter, you know? So, and then, you know, if I can help somebody with, you overcoming any one of those obstacles. How do I generate wealth for my family without punching a time clock 90 hours a week? That was part of where I came from. I had this great job as a firefighter. It made pretty decent money for what it was, but I found myself just in this constant struggle of trading time for money. I'd get off my 24-hour shift and I'd go right to a side job. And it was just never enough. It was never enough to get ahead. It was never enough to develop this lifestyle that we wanted, where we could, go out and buy toys, buy a side-by-side, buy a boat, spend afternoons during the week in the summer out in the lake with our kids. And you can do that when you have an investment portfolio that you can work remotely. I can't do that if I'm sitting in a firehouse for 24 hours, or if I'm, driving a van on my off days, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So I just feel compelled to tell people, like, you can get into this industry. You don't need to have $1 million in the bank. The very first property we bought, was on an FHA loan, and we borrowed money from my parents. And then we lived in it for 2 years while we redid it, and then we sold it, and then utilized that incentive for primary home ownership, where we didn't have to pay any capital gains. And that was like a mind-blowing moment for us. Like, we just made this huge sum of money on, fixing up this house, and we don't owe any taxes on it. I mean, that was the first year we hired a CPA to do our taxes, because we were like freaked. We're like, oh man, we're going to pony up a whole bunch of tax money this year. And the guy's like, nope, you lived in it for 2 of the last 5 years. I'm like, you can do this full time if you wanted to. Move into a house, live in it, work on it while you're living in it. And as long as you got money in the bank to cover your expenses, you can do this thing over and over again. And then use some of that money to invest in other properties. And there's so many different creative ways to generate wealth in the real estate world. And I think people really get pigeonholed into thinking, I need to save my money for 10 years and get 20% to put down. And then I need to work 2 jobs so I can afford to remodel this place. Like, it's not like that. I mean, the first place that we remodeled, I learned how to do it off of YouTube videos. I mean, literally, I'm sitting there like, how do you wire a light switch? Well, I'll go on YouTube, because now everything's online and you can figure it out, So, if you're creative and you've got the drive for it, you can create this life that you want for yourself and your family. You don't need to wait for someone to give it to you. And I think that's something that we've just really stumbled across over the last few years. And I would love to share it with people. And like say, there's paths to success, and they may not be conventional, but they're out there.
Yeah. And so that's amazing that you're able to make those shifts and make those pivots when you've seen it was necessary to do so. And anyone that's listening can really hear like your passion and your devotion, I think, for family, and your passion for what you're doing. And I think we get a sense of what your story is going to be about, right? We get a sense of what your story is going to be about. When I first read your story, there's a theme to, and I don't want to, spill the beans, but there's a theme that I think that goes along with your story. And this, for me, it was self-actualization. I feel like after I reading your story, it's like, man, this man came out on the opposite end of this journey, really finding himself. What story or what are you compelled to share? Just share a little bit about the people, like what are you going to be talking about in your story chapter for Reputation Driven?
Well, it's in the title of the book, right? I mean, your reputation is who you are as a business person. It's who you are as a community member, as a family member, right? And you can go out and buy all the advertising you want. You can put your face on billboards. You can do mailers. You can do whatever you want for whatever industry you're in. It doesn't have to be real estate, fill in the blank. But at the end of the day, what's going to matter more than the money that you spent is what people remember about you and what they're going to tell other people about you. So I think it's paramount in regardless of what you're doing. This is how we've kind of focused on our real estate business and our real estate journey is, we never look at, what the commission check's going to be, because because that's going to kill you. That's not a good way to do business. Right. Mm-hmm. So the way we look at every transaction is how can we do the best job we possibly can for this client, regardless of whether it's an $80,000 single wide or $1 million vacation rental, right? And I think that's how we got started with our first transactions, and we've tried to keep that theme and keep that underlying principle, throughout our business as we train new agents to do this too. It's like, don't sit there and count the zeros on your check, because some of the most lucrative long-term deals we've done have ended up starting out as the smallest commission checks. It's the person that you went above and beyond for, that you went to their house in the middle of the night before closing because you got a call saying that the sewer backed up, and you get there and you clean up the mess, and then you get a plumber out there after hours and you get it fixed so that this person doesn't have a delay in selling their house the next afternoon when they're supposed to close. And it's stuff like that really resonates, because at that point, you're not just out here to collect a paycheck. Like, you're helping this person transition to the next stage of their life. And for most people, when they go to buy or sell a house, their primary residence, that's the single, biggest economic financial event in their life, and so for that to get delayed or to fall apart or any other issue to arise, that's more than a realtor just missing out on a paycheck. That's somebody's livelihood in some instances that's being affected negatively. So, I think a big part of, again, how we've gotten to this point is looking at every transaction through that lens and saying, how can we just do right by this person that's blessing me with the opportunity to do business for them and with them. I think that's really important to identify, again, not just in real estate, but in all aspects of personal and professional life, that you should just try to do right by people and do the best job you possibly can. And that's kind of the underlying theme of, what I write about in my chapter was just one specific incident. It happened to be the first listing I ever had, but there were just a series of issues that came up, and it's like, okay, well, I need to get out here and mow the lawn. I need to get out here and do this. I need to get out here and, put the siding back up because a storm just rolled through, and, the seller lives in Texas and he can't get out here and get it taken care of. So just doing stuff like that.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So was there any moments in your business? I know you made massive pivots to move from Chicago, to pull up, to put away your tool belt and focus on the short-term rental space. But has there been any other pivots where you're like, maybe you spoke with Shae and you was like, we got to make another pivot. Like, this is just not working. Like, has there been any moments in the past year or so where you're like, babe, we gotta shift again?
Yeah. It's a constantly evolving thing here. So, like I said, I got my Arkansas home builder's license years ago. I kept it up because I wanted to build my own house, which we're in the process of building our own house now. So hopefully this spring we move out of the garage that we've been living in for 3 years with 3 kids and a dog, and we have an actual house. But, what we kept running into over and over again in our market, in the Branson market, which is what we primarily serve, was inventory, issues with inventory, right? So Branson's a highly restricted vacation rental market. You can't just buy any house you want and turn it into an Airbnb, It's got to be set in predetermined areas and zoned and everything. With that being said, most of the inventory is condo, like 70-80% of our inventory is condominium. And with the way that the prices have increased over the last couple of years with COVID and everything, the return on investment just isn't nearly what it was a couple of years ago. Well, I live just over the border in Arkansas. Arkansas, the county I live in, is completely unregulated for short-term rentals. The neighborhood sentiment for it is positive. We're, as we've been building vacation rentals and remodeling, we're hiring cleaners, we're hiring, tradesmen, we're hiring, fill in the blank. Like, we're generating jobs in this area where there weren't good paying jobs before. So over the last year, we've kind of looked around. Shae and I've had this conversation, like, maybe we should get into building vacation rentals, because what's available out there in Branson just isn't exciting anymore, but we've got an opportunity down here where we live to work with landowners around us and help them decide what would be the best stewardship of their land. Like, what's the best thing to do with it? And we've had conversations with people that own property down there, and brought in other builders, and that's what kind of pivoted us to maybe we should help build instead of just lining up builders. Because one of the builders we brought out specifically, there's one piece of land. It was a 5-acre piece. It's not huge. He came out, and it's one of the big builders that operates in Branson. He said, we can rezone this whole piece of land into condo, and I can put 25 5 to 7 bedroom lodges on this piece of property. And me and the landlord looked at each other and like, I'm building my house across the street over there. You live around the corner here. I don't want 25 7-bedroom houses crammed onto this road. And that was kind of like a light bulb moment. It's like, if the natural progression and the way that all the other builders are doing stuff up here, if they move down here, they're going to ruin the feel of where we live. So maybe we should get together and, we can all lift each other up. We can make money. We can create, a bit of an industry down here, but we can do it in a way that's responsible socially and keeps this area, because it's a little two-lane road that runs down the peninsula that I live on, and it dead ends at the lake, and there's a full service marina there. If it was just the Wild West and just unregulated growth, which it is, the natural progression is going to be to turn it into, like an amusement park looking area within the next 10 or 15 years. But I want to live down here for the rest of my life. I want my kids to grow up down here. I want their kids to grow up down here. So if, and one of the projects we're doing right now with another pair of investors, it's a 6-acre piece of land. We're building 4 houses on it, and we're putting in a shared pool. We want to keep it so that everything's spaced out. So the things that we fell in love with down here when we started coming don't go away. Yeah. Like, we don't want to come down this road and find a bunch of high rises and see, a bunch of condo buildings and all that. Like, I like the cabin in the woods feel. I like being able to go outside at night, look up and see the stars. That was one of the things that really blew me away when we first started coming down here. I mean, I grew up in Chicago. I'd never seen a shooting star. You go out here at night and you look around and you're like, holy smokes, like, it is lit up out there. It's crazy. Like, I don't want to lose that. I don't want my kids to lose that. So I think there's a real opportunity here, to again shift our business in another direction. We're still obviously doing the real estate brokerage and everything else, but we're revamping the construction business, and then we're also putting together a property management company to service just the little section of road that we live on. It's called Ozark Mountain Vacations, which is kind of how we branded our previous vacation rentals. So we're just kind of putting everything else under that umbrella, turning the shop building that we've been living into for 3 years into a management facility. So we'll have on-site laundry and maintenance and all that. And then we'll be able to, help out the people around us that want our help. And, we can help them manage their properties so that they can get back to doing what they love doing.
Awesome, man. It sounds like you just find ways to get stuck and then get unstuck and then get stuck but that's a part of the growth. Like, I don't think people understand, like, we have to look for ways to get ourselves stuck again so we can get unstuck. Mm-hmm. But it's in that uncomfortability where we really find our growth. And again, that's kind of like what I took from your story. I know that people are going to resonate when they actually do read it. So let the people know how they can reach out to you, Ryan, if they want to look towards investing in Arkansas around the area that you're investing in, or if they want to know more about how to stay in your units, more about you in general. How can people reach out to you?
Yeah, great. So we've got a website for the brokerage. It's www.duffyhomesllc.com. We're also on Facebook, Duffy Homes Branson. You can find me personally on Facebook. My name is Ryan Duffy. And our property management handle is ozarkmountainvacation.com. So www.ozarkmountainvacation.com. And you can find us on Facebook through that organization as well.
All right. And I'll be sure to leave the links as well, guys. So Ryan, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you for stopping by, man, sharing this wonderful, wonderful story that you have with us and the world. I know it's going to resonate. I know it's going to reach a lot of people's hearts and minds. I know your story will impact and change lives. So thank you, brother, for stepping up to the plate, saying yes, taking a swing at this opportunity and being here with us, man. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, man.
Thanks a lot, Judah. Talk soon.